Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Take a
We're in
second.
good shape. Okay. So I'm calling this meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to order on August 26th. Is that today? That's right. Okay. Roll call. Les?
Here.
Will?
Here.
Chris?
Here.
John Sempen here. And Christina is not here today. Christina Tracy. So we are going to go ahead with the election of officers. If that's agreeable with everybody. I know we had wanted to have Christina here to make that happen, but I think we should proceed with that item. So let's have our nominations open. We have 3 positions to fill: the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary.
We'll nominate John for chair.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any other nominations? Okay. So we'll call for a vote. How should we do this?
I think all in
All in
favor is
favor.
good.
All in favor of me, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody's opposed. Vice chair. Nominations.
We'll nominate Will.
I was just talking with Will. If we get a foundation started, and I'm not taking that nomination away, but I just want to have a moment of discussion. If we would happen to get our foundation approved, I was thinking we will need perhaps a financial officer to manage that. I don't know if that's appropriate. What do you think, Heather?
I think we have to have a much deeper discussion about that. I think we're getting kind of far ahead. That's why I brought
I'm
our
not nominating anybody.
No,
for
no, no,
that.
no. I mean about that whole topic. I think,
Okay.
yeah, that's why we have Dana Pinkard, our new finance director, with us to talk a little bit
Great.
about that.
Thank you for joining us. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Okay, so that may or may not impact on Will, since Will is kind of heading that up for the commission. Any other nominations for vice chair? Okay. All those in favor?
We didn't have a second.
Pardon? Oh, we need a second?
Oh, second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we're agreed. And for the secretary, I will nominate Les.
Second.
Any other nominations, Chris? Okay. Everyone in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Administrative issues, the donation from the Boomtown people.
Excuse me, John, you better do the
Did I miss something?
approval of the minutes.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I should have done that first, shouldn't I? Thank you,
Okay.
thank you, Les. Okay. I saw no revisions. Anybody have any problems with Les's presentation? Okay.
I move that we approve the minutes of August 6th.
Second.
In favor, everyone say aye.
Aye.
No opposed. Thank you. All right. So administrative issues. We have, I have 2 items there. The Boomtown money that is awaiting our approval to figure out where we can put it. And that's about $1,000, maybe $1,200 that they have offered us for the commission, and then the discussion of a regular meeting date. So let's talk about the Boomtown.
Yeah, I was hoping if Dana, you don't mind going to the microphone, she could talk what she thinks about how we handle that donation. And then since she's here anyways, about the same topic of finances, perhaps under 5M, she could talk about her knowledge and experience with the endowment funds and
Great.
what that could look like. Again, Dana is new, fresh perspective. I don't know a lot about this issue at all. Donations really haven't been an issue ever for our department, that it's been, something that we needed to accept. And of course, endowment funds never had experience with that either. So thanks for being here, Dana. We appreciate that.
Dana, what is your last name again?
Pinkert,
Pinkard?
Pinkert with the T at the end, Pinkert.
Thank you.
And thank you. So as far as the donation goes, the only thing I had mentioned to Heather is I didn't see a citywide policy since the commission falls under the city. That's something I will address with the city. I mean, it's just in short saying what you do when you get donations, it doesn't happen very often, but if somebody should walk up off the street and say, oh, here's $2,000 for the fire department, we want to make sure we have an audit trail and how all that goes. So it's as simple as for this donation, it's not a material amount. The commission saying we want to accept it and use it for the commission's, at the commission's discretion. And then what happens is we receipt it in, we create a receipt, we keep a copy. In this case, Heather's department would administer the donation and just keep the records. And then as say she's going to buy books for the commission or there's something else you want to do, when we spend it, she will let us know. And then because it's not a material amount, it's easy to track. If the commission got up into hundreds of thousands of dollars, then we'd look at a separate fund and all different types of accounting for that. So, but in this case, it's pretty easy. You can just as a voice vote, say we want to accept it and send a thank you and keep in mind that you have it for use.
Great. Thank you, Dana. I might just mention, I don't know if I've forwarded any of our correspondence from Ellen Dalton. Have you received anything?
No.
I don't remember. I feel like it's been a while.
I can send those emails on to you, but Ellen I guess she was financial head of the Boomtown organization when this all took place in the 1980s, I believe 1980s. And her last message to me was that there's no rush to get this secured. I mean, I just would like to get it done so we don't lose it. But she said the only thing is the bank has if it's inactive for a number of months or years, then there will be an interest, and we'd rather not have that.
Right.
Pay that.
Okay. Yeah. Anytime she wants to forward it, I think between Heather and I, we can handle everything. And then if the board wants a copy of the receipt, however that works.
Shall we wait though until after the city council approves this, or do we need to even do that?
No, I think that's a bigger topic
Okay.
as far as, getting some type of citywide policy on donations. But it came to my mind when Heather emailed me to say, can they take this or not? That's the first thing I looked for.
Great. So Heather,
But
you
you
can
certainly can accept the donation.
you can advise me on when and how to advise Ellen Dalton. Okay.
Well, I think if you do that voice vote today, then you can proceed with Ellen. And then what Dana's saying from there, we can still accept the donation and then we'll get our policy going. It's just a bigger conversation with administrative staff.
So you think we need a voice vote from the
Yes.
commission?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So the city would create like a line or something in whether the budget or something, in other words, for HPC.
Well, right now
Right.
there's a boards and commissions line. Again, for a small amount, we would track that on internal books as far as, that goes. If it ended up being, bigger, we would certainly put a separate line item in the budget for just HBC. I think we have a couple of those.
So money coming in from endowment, like once it's endowed and there's interest paid, it may be in the thousands of dollars that would be able to probably go there also.
Well, that's a separate conversation as far as an endowment. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces for the commission. Right now, it's the Historic Preservation Commission under the auspices of the city. with that, we take care of the accounting, we take care of everything, that flows smooth. Should you decide to become a foundation or some type of separate action like that, I think that's a discussion with the city attorney, because then you
Okay.
become a completely separate group from the city. From an accounting perspective, you become what we call a component unit. We still have to report on some of that, but we don't necessarily take care of all of your financial activity. As you said, you probably would need a treasurer and all of that, whether it's a corporation or a foundation or however that works. So yes, then you just have a whole separate thing.
I'm working on the endowment, and I've got to set up a meeting with Kristen Otley at the Parks and Recreation, because they have an endowment. And I want to talk to her about, and when I talked to the mayor last week, I think it was, he talked like they maybe even have a separate board within it that deals with the.
And
with
I
that.
haven't done a lot of research on Kristen's, but if it's similar to this that I've read, she's, within her group, she's working with that other community foundation.
Mhm. Parks and Recreation Foundation, right?
And so that money is separate from us. And that's
Okay.
what this looks like. So if you were going to do that and still be your Historic Preservation Commission, any donations or anything goes through this group to this foundation and they disperse it, they again would handle all of the accounting and that type of thing. The city does have a cemetery endowment. I haven't looked at the
Interesting.
legalities of what that agreement looks like, but those usually just function as a trust,
Interesting.
for lack of a better name. And, you are only allowed to spend the interest on certain things. But I think the answer is it is a bigger discussion.
Okay.
And from an accounting perspective, once you go that other route, it's a little bit separate from us.
Okay. We'll work on that.
Good.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dana.
So let's have a vote on if we agree to accept the donation from the Boomtown organization. Everyone in favor, say aye.
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 Everyone opposed? Okay, so we are agreed. And I will deal with Heather and Ellen Dalton and making that happen.
Thank you.
Okay, the other important item, and I think it is an important one, is finding thank you so much, Dana. Finding a regular meeting time. We've had some problems, and mostly because of the summer, I think, and all of us having different schedules. But I think everyone saw the message from Christina yesterday concerning her suggestions for possible regular meeting dates. Any reaction?
I'm opposed to a 7 a.m. meeting.
I thought that might not be the favorite choice there.
But that's all. That's my.
Is it
only-
just the time of day or?
I'm too old for that.
I'd rather meet at 10 at night.
Oh,
No,
no
I'd rather
way.
meet in the evening. instead of
Well,
I have
the
kids to get on the bus. That's really challenging for me.
That's
Different
7 a.m.
sets of age groups.
I would think you don't start that early anyway, Heather.
We
right?
open the doors at 8, so, right.
No, I think that would be problematic no matter what to do 7 o'clock. And if anybody happened to want to come and be a part of our discussion in the audience, it would be difficult for them. So I say we don't have to go with her suggestions, but let's see if either of those dates, the Monday at 4 or Tuesday at 4, could work for us. I think you would be the biggest problem.
Yeah, no, at 4 p.m. Either of those days would work. I know council meets Mondays, right? So maybe,
Yeah, they first and third Monday.
yeah.
Unless it's a holiday, then it moves to Tuesday.
So what?
But they meet at 7. Sometimes they
Oh,
have
that's
additional subcommittee meetings
earlier.
or committee of the whole, so it just depends.
What if we would propose the 4th Tuesday of each month at 4:00.
I want to say, is Parks and Rec at a 6 or 7 on Tuesday, fourth Tuesday? Right.
Before, but you're obligated there or not?
No.
No.
I'm just thinking of other
Yeah.
constrictions that may happen.
But if
I may
we
have
do
to have
Tuesday,
staff
I
fill
mean,
in every now and then because I have my kids being in school soon.
Yeah.
I have to get them on and off the bus, depending, not too much detail. My husband works, so I never know his schedule. He's a
So
nurse. So whatever day is fine. It might not always be me is what I'm saying.
Okay. But at least some of the time you could be here, you
Right.
think? I
Mhm.
mean, I know it's
Yep.
hard to project,
Yeah.
but because we need you.
Right.
Okay.
And I still have to double check the calendar just to be safe. But no,
Yeah.
I do appreciate a regular meeting time and
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we all need that. And I know some of us will have conflicts as the year progresses, but if we can at least have something that we can shoot for. If we went from 4 to 5:30, Heather, is that a problem going that late for you?
I'm always gonna have problems
Okay.
just because I have a very active family. So
So,
and I already have other evening meetings that are Wednesdays. And but like I said, it might have to be somebody else is my point.
okay. And we
So-
we don't always have to have a 90-minute meeting. We can
Sure.
keep it short too. Are we agreed to try for Tuesdays? What would be that next, that would be September.
The 28th.
Okay, hopefully I don't have anything already.
Like I said, I got to double check the council calendar. I hear Bill's gonna look for us.
I'm writing it down in anticipation that works.
And that works for you, Chris? I mean, that time works for you?
Yep. Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. You're not there. Okay. Thank you.
I think
We'll
with
double check.
standard meetings too, that just helps, as we schedule things, we just know that that's the time and
Right.
try to avoid other
Right,
conflicts.
good. All right.
So that
and-
will be tentative until we,
I just want to
confirm
make sure the
date.
council room doesn't have anything
Okay,
that
so
I'm not seeing because we have a lot of boards and commissions. So
you'll communicate that to us, Heather,
Yes.
then, and also to Christina, if you would. Okay. Great. So let's move forward. And I think before we jump into all these implementation items that I have listed, I'd like to have a discussion with Commission about priorities. There's a tremendous amount of things that have to happen, and we can't do them all at once. And I think it would be wise if we could decide what's the most important and try to pursue and complete some of our jobs. So for sure today, I want to talk about the number 7, that's Les's clarifications, which he put together last April. Is that right, Les? And we haven't actually ever discussed those. So I'd like to for sure get to that today. And then landscaping, I don't know where we're at. That's number 8. And then we've already talked a little bit about the Boomtown money, but we could come back to Will's endowment progress. So I'd like to get to that. And then maybe about the cooperation with BGSU and to see if there's ways that we can proceed with at least meeting with Rodney Rogers and seeing if there's things that we can coordinate with the university.
John, we did when we approved this planning outline of yours at the last meeting, that I think we sort of agreed that was the rough priority order of importance.
The listing was the priorities.
Yeah, I guess it's the same. Yeah, it's the same on our agenda. That's the same.
But for sure, I want to get to those items today. I'm just thinking, though, that maybe we could talk about what is the highest priority. In other words, should we be trying to figure out the method for identifying districts? Chris
So I
had,
shake my head.
some suggestions, and I know Les did too. Should we be trying to complete the recognition of the courthouse, jail, police department building, and the Needle Hall, which is already we've had some work done on that. There's so many things that we could do, but I think also we need to talk about the process of making an identification of a district, and then how do we push it through? How do we involve the community, and how do we set up meetings so that we can convince our community that this is important? So I see that as a big priority. But I want to hear what you all have to say.
I just think that that moving as quickly as we can on the city buildings and the county building should be a high priority, because it's a form of public engagement and publicity. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, I see A and C, originally 1 and 3, the public engagement plan and the issue about districts as very much linked together, because one of the key things I think we need to decide is whether we try to move forward in the relatively near future on encouraging districts, or whether we could try to do a coordinated public engagement plan first as a way of generating support for the idea of districts. So I see them very much as linked.
Okay.
I think we're going to have to have a general idea of either a district or how we're going to go about forming them. I think that's going to be a big question that the public will ask. Because those were questions we were getting even as we were writing the ordinance. Well, what are the districts? People want to know if they're going to be affected. And I personally feel like that's probably a high priority, is to determine kind of get a general idea of what those districts might look like and our process, because, we want to, that's our mission as the commission, is to preserve our history, and we can't regulate any of that if we don't have the districts to regulate.
I would agree. It seems like that's like the chicken and the egg. It seems like that needs to probably be done first. So then anything we identify as a historic building would fit into those districts.
Mm-hmm.
I like your idea about the eras. I'd even, before I saw that, I think you'd mentioned about years, was thought of like in 10 years increments or something. But then I saw your eras, and I thought that worked out good, because I thought that helps us identify, say, instead of just having an overlay, because I'm thinking overlay, sort of going back to CAD, where you had multiple overlays that you can create, a drawing.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, of the plan of the city with all these different layers of districts. Because I thought that helps us establish the age of buildings, instead of just saying, here's the district of the boom town, and it's all these houses. You don't know. I like the idea of years or ages, eras, because you can tell, well, that's a 1910 house, or that's a 1980s
Coupling
and 1890.
coupling the date with the name.
Just by looking at the district, it tells you quite a bit about the buildings that are in that district, versus just there's these historic buildings. I like that.
So I think the ideas are great. I think after listening to all the sessions, maybe Chris did this week too, with the NAPC that we joined, and then the listserv, I think it's interesting. Like, you want to package everything in this pretty bow and have standards and policy. But at the end of the day, it's really comes down to having political roots of you're going to get to that, majority or that 60%, or you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so one of these listserv conversations was really interesting to me. There's a man named William Schmickel that writes books about this issue, about how vital historic districts are, but how tough they are to even get one. And it might be something that we want to look at as a commission, or you do, if you want me to order any of these books. I think they'd be really helpful, just because it really, again, talks about grassroots efforts and how it becomes very challenging. So I think just wrap that around your mind. Like, it sounds pretty, like, let's do North Maple, right? You've already got a lot of names in that petition. I think at that point, though, I think at some point you have to think of can we realistically get a majority of the street? I don't think it's going to be easy to draw by eras. I just think that reading all this information, and it just is not as, I don't know. I printed the email if you guys want to see it, but I thought we have to think of a lot of different issues that come in when it comes to.
I think it'd be
Pretty good
great if you
district.
could order a couple books for us.
Yeah,
to,
definitely. I can
use
send
as
you his
reference.
link, and not promoting anything. I just thought he's writing exactly about what you're going to try to do. Right. And so,
Yeah.
What tactics are helpful. So I can look further at those books.
I think there's no problem with having these ideals. A settlement era. I don't know what buildings that would include, even of.
No, I don't either. I don't know the,
I like that concept.
Yeah.
And I understand exactly what Heather's saying, that the concept may not be physically possible knowing our community, but we could come up with an ideal and then work from that. Now, Les,
I think
sorry.
even if we weren't forming districts in that manner, I think organizing maybe the guidelines in that manner, is going to be helpful for us and the homeowners, building owners, because certain era of buildings have certain architectural detailing, and that's going to keep it a little bit cleaner for us to be like, this
Materials.
is what's important and this is what isn't. Yeah,
Building materials
material.
too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain
That
histories.
was something that I thought of immediately when I looked at Chris's suggestion, that's a useful, very useful thing, whether we form districts one way or another. And we're not forming them, but whether we try to encourage districts of one kind or another. I just want to remind you that the CLG ordinance describes districts in geographical terms. So we do have that issue.
We will have physical boundaries, right, to
Yeah, and
our
they
district.
have to be contiguous. That's
Right.
So that's an issue about doing things.
Mhm.
I mean, Boomtown sort of works because I think that area was largely built in roughly the same time period.
Right.
And the rest we don't really know that much about, to be
Right.
honest, at this point.
for example, when you said industrialization
Mhm.
era, would that be our downtown perhaps? Or does that date
The-
earlier than the 20s?
Downtown, I think, was part of the Boomtown era, wasn't it? Built up in the late 1800s. Well, okay. Some of it.
Okay.
That's tough because,
we'd have
we've had there were fires and things that took some
Right.
of our buildings. Yeah.
I thought
So
it was-
that doing it by era, that might be a little bit, like you were saying, Les, we don't want to have like these Swiss cheese of different districts because
Maybe that's something we just use to help us keep track of buildings.
yeah,
In other words, it's not to follow the CLG, in other words, we follow the CLG, but there's this other,
But definitely for
Documented.
guidelines.
For
I mean, it
guidelines.
makes
That helps
perfect
us.
sense there, yeah.
helps us identify things and developing any kind of design guidelines. And
right,
I thought when you talked about industrial, I thought about like the site for the Heinz plant,
right.
Yeah.
and it's historic.
And what's
landmark.
interesting also are some of those homes that were built for the workers, which still exist, or at least I think they do.
Mhm.
And there might be a few blocks that, of homes that are maybe not mansions, but interesting because of what they represent.
Right.
And we
Yeah.
may want to consider some of those areas as well.
I'm reading, well, it's more of like a picture book with narrative, Eric Honifer's book about Bowling Green.
Mhm.
And I think it's interesting because I'm trying to compare pictures to what it looks like now. Well, we still have one of the original stone houses built from our lime quarry that is on Napoleon. So, it's things like that, I think, that are interesting. And there's a house too, and I don't know if it's exactly in Bowling Green or just south of here, where the original homestead family, generation after generation, still is there. So I think it's cool to follow up with things like that. And it's one of those, it's the
And those would be
history.
really newsworthy things that
Right.
we could get in the newspaper and make it known that.
And we need
People
to
excited.
remember that the CLG ordinance allows individual properties to be designated. And so we could handle things like that
Right.
or encourage things like
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
without dealing with the district issue necessarily at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we proceed with this problem of
So can I just suggest that what you said about ideal districts, I don't see anything wrong with us having that kind of discussion immediately. In fact, I think it would be a smart idea. And we wouldn't be committing ourselves to anything and raising any political issues. We'd just be talking about this would be the ideal thing for the following reasons, blah, blah, blah. And I think that makes good sense. In the meantime, it seems pretty obvious that we need to know more about when buildings in this city were built and how they might form together in formal districts. And we need to think very carefully about the political implications. How are we going to get
the
council approval of
Right. I
water
don't
board?
think it's
So are you-
council, it's the community, right, that we need to.
Well, yeah,
Well, the way it wound up, there's no vote, remember?
right.
I mean,
It's
will
up to
clearly have to
council.
be a survey and there'll have to be information about, how many approve and how many don't, but it's council that makes the decision. There's no vote in the latest version of the CLG.
So are you suggesting maybe an inventory is step one? So we know what we
I
have
think
before we're,
inventory is high and I
Mhm.
think public engagement is high
Mhm.
because if we reached a point where the majority of people in the community were aware of this, kind of liked it, that would be some real incentive for the naysayers to maybe think twice about opposing,
yeah,
at least publicly.
yeah. I mean, that's where public engagement, where, we really explain what preservation is and why it's important and how it's going to help the community. I mean, that's the only way we're going to get people on board.
When you're talking, I was thinking of the session I just watched was yesterday. The National Park Service had talked about grants, and they said they have the most grants right now they've ever offered, ever. And so then she gave examples of very typical CLG types of grant projects. And I thought one was really neat. It was called an activity book. And so, you talk about historic preservation, and it's basically an activity book for children. I mean, I'm not saying adults can't use it too, but I think that's something that would be nice here. You're celebrating Bowling Green, teaching about Bowling Green, and are we really engaging our youth in our history here as much as we could be?
Mhm.
And so I thought that would be a really fun project. I think we would all learn from it. I think it would hit generationally, our whole community. And they gave the example, and I forgot what city it was, but I can share that. But I thought it was just a really cool idea. Not only was it fun, but it's interactive, and we're learning more about Bowling Green and celebrating Bowling Green.
So was this a book of,
kind of like a coloring book. I don't like to call it that. They call it an activity book, but it was, just like you open it up, and it might have been Austin, Texas. It might not have been, but it just looked really fun and celebrated their history.
but celebrating by saying, okay, here's a walk that you can take. I mean, is it like a sort of a walking tour, but designed for a younger audience?
Right. Yes, it had, dot to dots or whatever you call it. And but then it talked about the history of that community and had a variety of activities in the book. Of course, I didn't see the whole thing. It was just samples, during her presentation, but I thought it was a neat idea. And it's very doable. And again, I think we need to focus on celebrating history here and making people proud of Bowling Green as part of the public education process.
So maybe that's, I'm trying to think who could do this. who could create a book like that. I mean, it might be something that we could work with one of the librarians, public library.
Yeah.
Les could certainly write something. I mean, he's a great writer, but it might be better to involve more people outside.
It would be a
the
great
commission.
partnership. And that's part of, I think a lot of these grants, what they pushed is they like to see partnerships, strong partnerships when they fund a grant. And that certainly could be. So again, just an idea that stood out to me that I thought was very doable for the community and would kind of check a lot of boxes off.
So two years ago, I think, Preserve Toledo partnered with the Young Ohio Preservationists, which is part of Heritage Ohio. To do an event, part of the art walk in downtown Toledo, but Young Ohio Preservationists did this around the state. They had different areas do these activity events where people drew, in black and white, drew a building. They focused on buildings that had received state tax credits, but and then they were turning those drawings into a coloring book. So there's opportunity to really engage the community if we even wanted to do something
Is that
where they create the book and then we could actually have it
Young
distributed.
Ohio Preservation? Is that
Used to live
an
there.
organization within Ohio,
It's part of Heritage Ohio.
throughout Ohio?
Mhm. It
And
is.
is that something we should try to even see about getting created here? Maybe with the university or something. I mean,
You mean like I don't think they
is there
have
a chapter
chapters.
here in Bowling Green?
No, I don't think they have chapters. I think it's just a statewide sort of
Be cool.
event. I'll have to ask. So Sarah Marsom is sort of seems to head up most of that, and
Let's film.
I'll have to.
Okay.
I can reach out to her and see how.
Good
They're
ideas.
organized.
And I found the sheet. I'm sorry. It's Huntsville, Alabama, and it gives a couple examples.
Great. Thank you, Heather. Okay, I think the problem still is, how do we do this? How do we can talk about inventorying and we could all go around the city and make our own ideas, but is that the best way? Should we do this as a group? Maybe.
The
But
inventorying or the district
well,
forming or both.
both. I mean, do we? I would imagine if we really wanted to be careful about this, we should inventory first and then consider. But we need some instruction on how to even inventory and make this efficient and productive.
Right.
You may be the one to help us with that.
Well, we do have those Ohio historic inventory sheets that have been passed around a bit, and that was something that Nathan mentioned was
this thing.
yes,
Yeah.
was a good resource. It might be more information than we want for a cursory review, but it's formatted nicely, so that might be a nice way to format it.
But that would mean looking at a lot of individual properties and gathering whatever information we can. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do this, but this could take a year to develop.
Well, it seems like you about need the tentative district, sort of like with the boundary, to know what buildings to inventory within that boundary then.
Why don't we do the ideal district discussion as a first step?
I think
Yeah.
it's like a charrette,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
we need to be maybe around the table and a map and start.
And then try to move on both public engagement and the inventory. Clearly, we can't do the inventory of all the areas of the city ourselves. I mean, we're not going to do that.
Right.
But it would be helpful if each of us maybe did our own property or something, so we sort of know more concretely what
How to do
has
it.
to be done and how much needs to be
How long
done
it
minimally,
takes to
and
produce
then
that.
we could guide, like if we're able to get a grant to hire some, what, a class? I'm not sure what it would be at the university to do some of the legwork. We would be able to better train them or, tell them what we want.
Mhm.
But I think having some notion of what ideally we'd like to wind up with, apart from individual ones, which can come anywhere, would be an important first step.
Okay,
agree.
so if, sorry, Chris, I interrupted you.
That's all.
Maybe at our next meeting, it could be a roundtable discussion of districts throughout ideas. We can all prepare for that. What do you think? Get our thoughts on paper. I mean, we can't do that today, I don't think, but we could start with both Chris and Les's suggestions. Les, you had talked about having a separate downtown district, a boomtown district, North Main, South Main district, East Courthouse district, or perhaps all of this being one district.
Yeah, I meant those as possibilities, not as.
Right.
But I do have a personal view based on my notion that I built into some of those the presentation we did to the Exchange Club, et cetera, and to the city council, that if we saw this as I do, that the long range benefit to historic preservation would really be to revitalize the city in a variety of ways. That if you come at it from that point of view, the areas that stand out to me are the corridor areas. We've got Boomtown is essentially one corridor area. The other side of Maine is pretty much preempted by the city's other plans for that development of that district or that area. And so that leaves North and South Maine. And I personally would add the Court Street area because of the possibility of cooperating with the university, getting some help there with.
So you'd see that courthouse as part of the university, or we could separate and do a university segment by itself.
Well,
also.
I think the Court Street, Courthouse, that general area, because of the linkage to the university and because of their plans to change the entrance, is a really great opportunity for at least a discussion about how they might help us with Court Street. They bought a lot of property on East Worcester.
Right.
Maybe they'd even be willing to do a little of that to make that stretch from the university to downtown a better place, a quote revitalized place. So anyway, to get back to the main point, that's why I personally think of North and South Main, Boomtown, and the Court Street area as kind of keys. But that's, it's just one person. It's just one person's idea.
I think it's also easy for people to wrap their head around sort of it is like the core of our town. So that, I think that's an easy.
And with the downtown being the real core. I
right.
didn't mention downtown, but downtown.
Yeah, I like the idea though of these titles, industrialization era, post-war era, boomtown era. And is there a way, and maybe we can all be thinking about this, that North Main we have some title for it, something that makes it, stand out as a place rather than just saying North Main, which isn't very poetic.
I'm sure we could come up with something jazzy.
Yeah.
If we thought about
I think that's what we need. Okay, so again, back to the question, how do we proceed on this? Should we each individually just come up with ideas and bring them next time?
And by ideas, you mean boundaries?
Boundary ideas, and perhaps think of ways as far as dates that things can link together, and maybe some names of like you had in your suggestions.
Because I think have a lot of books I haven't put my hand on, but I think there's even books on different, like year of how, like houses,
Oh, you're
you
right.
know,
Yeah.
and so I was want to try to find it to look at which categories ours, we have different ones. And we got some Civil War houses. One got torn down but Doug Valentine's, maybe birthplace, I think it's on, is it on South Collie?
Oh, I'm not sure.
I think, but it's that, there's a rock house back,
Oh, yeah.
limestone house back there.
Mhm.
I think that's where he, before all of the numbered street, because he had a lot to do with developing of the
Right.
numbered streets.
Right.
And that whole history of that area there
Mhm.
also.
Okay,
But yeah, that's good.
so next time that will be one of
So
our,
that will be our, let's agree that's our main agenda item for the next.
Exactly.
meeting.
Exactly.
I mean, there'll be
And-
some others
yeah,
probably, but,
good.
and then we'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll do it.
All right.
I think otherwise we're going to sit around for a year and spin our wheels. Okay, back to, for a moment, the recognition of the courthouse and those other buildings.
Yeah.
We have an agreement drawn up by Michael Marsh. But I don't know if we have the go-ahead to,
Mayor stopped to see me Monday and he said that their legal counsel is reviewing it, that they are apt to agree to it contingent upon their review.
Oh,
So that's good news. And he also talked to President Rogers at BGSU and he seemed very supportive of the MOU too. So I think just wrapping up the county first and then, that works out and then talking further with President Rogers. So that's good news on both fronts.
excellent. Excellent. And you all got my message about my conversation with Rogers
Yeah.
as well. So,
I didn't see that.
oh, didn't I send it?
That's okay. No, I need to know.
Yeah, I got it.
I thought you were.
Maybe
on
you
it.
did. Who
I'll
knows?
send it
I-
again. Heather.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
A lot of emails. I didn't get it.
I like the way you worded it, like it wasn't, I did this, I did that. So when I wrote mine about what I met with the mayor, I did the same thing.
Uh-huh.
Instead of put like Rowdy Bush did this, or in other words, I liked what you did.
Heather, I'll send you that.
How you did it.
I had it was the ice cream social that the university put together. It was a little controversial because some of the faculty thought this was not enough payback for all of our hard work. But anyway, we were outside and I had a chance to talk to Rodney and brought this up and he was very excited. He's very interested, by the way, in indigenous people that had lived here, 200 years ago. Now, we may not get into that too much with the commission, but I mean, there is that history as well that we could.
That is something that in general, the preservation professionals are, wanting to pay more close
But
attention to. So
is there any anthropologists? Do we have an anthropology department on campus?
We must have some.
Because they're the ones dealing with those kinds of issues. It could be good to get a touch base with anthropologists
Yeah, yeah.
about the history of the Black Swamp.
right.
Okay, I'm writing down send Heather Rogers memo. Okay.
That might be a good department in general to be in touch with if we're eventually moving into wanting to inventory buildings. That might be a department that would be interested in
Okay.
helping.
We can find out who's on that department. Maybe we'll know some of those people.
When there was still a geography department, that would have been a place to start, but
Yeah,
I don't think there's a geography department anymore. I
No,
think it's
they-
a school of something or other.
yeah. No, I think that's
But,
gone.
there must be still some
When
geographer folks around, maybe.
When I was in the PhD program at Florida, it was in architecture, and there was a student was an anthropologist, and she was going there to get her PhD mainly for the credentials. But in Florida, there was requirements that if you're building a building and you hit bones or remnants, that construction stopped.
Yeah.
And you had to get anthropologists in to do reports and.
Okay,
Okay, so to sum
So-
up where we are.
Yes.
So on the Wood County Courthouse and Jail, it's moving forward and sounds like we can leave that pretty much now to the city officials to work it out with the county. We don't need to do more. But with the university, I think a meeting with Rodney and or his designees would be really, really important so that we can broach at least the idea of the university sort of helping us with the revitalization of Court Street as part of this move, as well as designating historic structures.
They
So
might-
I'm very much in favor of trying to move forward with a meeting with Rodney. You said he was willing.
He's ready.
Oh, Heather, I
Mhm.
I know you said this, but you said the mayor spoke with President
Yes.
Rogers. Okay.
About
They
the
didn't-
MOU.
Okay.
He seemed supportive, yes.
But that's just about the historic
MOU.
buildings on campus. That doesn't have
Right.
anything to do with the Court
Yep.
Street
Right.
corridor.
Heather, though, you just were saying you were trying to slow us down on that one a little bit. Pursuing the university, getting,
Yeah, I think Mayor was just hoping that we could get the county first and that model done, because we would still ultimately want, even if the MOU was signed, that they would go through this process of your recommendation and then the overlay happening, because we would still want to show that on a map.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't say, once we get the MOU, I would say, yeah, that's great to move forward, but we'd still have that process. Does that make sense? We'd still want it
Yeah.
on the map as an overlay.
Well,
Right.
we need to look at how do we designate it? What the actual designation? How do we establish like a certificate or something,
yeah.
a plaque?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, we need.
but it may take us a month to get a meeting with Rogers. So maybe when you meet with the mayor, could you just ask him if we could, without pushing too much, get something on the books for sometime in the future? Would that be okay?
I think so, but I think they'll probably want some pretty specific agenda items.
Okay.
So think about that. And are you
we can-
talking a half hour or?
Well, I would imagine, I would think half hour to 45 minutes would be minimum. Rodney talks a lot, and
And who, I don't know if you want the whole commission, then that turns into a meeting. So do you have a representative or two?
yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Okay.
And maybe, I don't know, at least two of us could.
I'd be glad to go. I know
uh,
President, whether they would get Brian Swope would possibly.
I think Les, you ought to be part of that. We could.
Brian isn't?
I don't think.
Oh, wow.
We could. I mean, we can all be present. We could all do it. You think we need
If we're all in attendance, then it's
That's a meeting.
official
If you have a
commission
majority,
meeting.
it's official meeting.
well, Les, would you and Will want to pursue that?
I'm willing to be part of it, and I'm willing to try to draft something for the mayor to look at as a kind of agenda of topics to discuss beyond the move. The move is a sort of given.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll
Part of-
volunteer to do that.
Part of
Be
it
great.
too would be like the president's, their thoughts on like taking down the administration building to open up that historic corridor. Does that kind of connect?
Yeah,
in?
what is, we need to
Right.
know what's in
Yeah.
their mind about this so-called
That kind of-
corridor. They talk about the corridor.
And
So
that's
how
part
far
of
are they
it.
willing
That's
to
part
go
of it,
to?
yeah.
and
sit down,
and
how
also
could it
he
fit
mentions
with us?
often about being linkage with the community.
It would
you
be
know, so we wanna
it would
pursue
be a
that.
dialogue, but,
Right.
but, we should have, I guess, an agenda of sorts
Yeah.
for the mayor, so he's comfortable with it.
Okay, all right. Let's pursue that. And I recommend we spend the remainder of our time on these older issues, the clarifications, suggestions from Les, the landscaping. We've kind of talked about the endowment.
Yeah, I think we're okay with
Okay.
that.
And we kind of talked about cooperation with BGSU. So let's go back to your memo from, when was that? August 20. Oh, August 26th.
Yeah.
Let me find the correct date. No, this was the April.
Yeah, it
April-
was April
April
23rd.
23rd, sorry. You had a series of definitions. You had two parts, right? And then you had some guidelines for the, I think, for owners in the community. Were your suggestions on the definitions something that you were proposing they be an amendment to the ordinance?
No. No, the council already dumped these. These are the things that were in our draft that we gave to council.
And
They dumped them.
these were not included.
These were not
Okay.
included. They said there was no need to have them in the ordinance.
Okay, so,
But I think they're useful for us and the
There's-
community as a kind of guide to
Right.
what we're willing to consider.
That's something that would end up in our guideline.
Yeah.
For our,
okay, so we need to keep track of
Yeah.
what,
All they have in there is right now is historic district.
And
Means
historic
area with
property.
Right.
Historic significance.
Yeah.
Historic overlay district. That's the only
Yep.
historic free thing.
okay, I think they're all very well written and I think they are.
And the second
Appropriate.
section was also in our CLG ordinance and they dumped, I shouldn't keep using the word dump, but they decided
You
not
can-
to
You can use
include
that,
that.
Delete.
yeah. You mean the guidelines for the owners?
Yeah, the guidelines for owners.
But again,
I think, John, I don't think this is really a key thing for us to worry about right
Okay.
now.
okay,
This is my idea of something that should be included in a guidelines document at whenever we decide to create one.
great. I didn't want us to forget about it. I didn't know where we wanted to go with this, so,
Why don't we just sort of keep this on the back burner?
good. Okay, so what about the landscaping? We kind of got stopped on that last meeting. I
Yeah,
believe.
we got stopped because Chris or someone raised a really important question about what about changes to existing landscaping, which Will and I had not thought about directly when we gave you the initial draft. So that's why we came up with a new proposal that hopefully does address that.
So,
And this, John, this, in my mind, I waffle a little bit about whether it's important to go back to city council, but I think we have to because the CLG ordinance right now is wrong. We probably shouldn't allow that to continue.
okay, can you explain why it's wrong?
It's wrong because it says in its, in one of the definitions, it basically says that people have to, yeah, I've got it here somewhere, Will, thanks. Have to,
Maybe I'm not sure if that's it.
yeah, this is it. Would have to do landscaping appropriate to the era. We didn't mean that. We didn't
Right.
mean that. We were trying to deal just with the question of if a property was built in an era which specifically did not want landscaping in the front of the building, that we would not demand it. So that, the way it's written now, it would seem to demand that every property owner do a landscaping that's appropriate to the historic era. We don't want to monitor that or try to force that on anyone. So I think, even though I sort of in general hate the idea of going back to council, I think maybe we have to, but listen
Could
to what
we,
the rest of you think. We could make the clarifications in our own guidelines,
We'll just see if it,
but there would be a little bit of a contradiction between the guidelines and the ordinance, but maybe that's okay. Heather's sort of nodding her head.
No, I just wonder if you're in operation with it for a year or so, there may be other
That's
things
what
you
I-
want to change. And if you're constantly going,
that's what I thought. Wonder if the
To
council
them.
members would bring it up. Wait and see if they bring it up and
We could.
then we try to do it for a year and see if
yeah, the other problem bringing it up is that they may all of a sudden see something else they
Yeah, I
don't
know.
like. And then
Yeah, I think
we're
maybe
gonna
just-
deal with that.
No, I mean, I've thought about all of these things and
Keep it.
if the majority of us are comfortable with the idea of handling it as part of our own internal guidelines, then I think it's fine.
If-
And we can just say these guidelines on this point supersedes what's or clarifies what's in the
Right.
That's
CLG
better.
ordinance. Yeah,
Okay. I would,
I think that's the way to go.
I would be in favor of that. Yeah, I see a big headache in taking it back to council, and potential other problems there.
So if Jeff Dennis or Greg were to ask us, well, what happened? You said you were gonna do something about landscaping, then maybe we would have to go back to them. But if they don't raise it, we would have handled it internally.
I think the issue will come up as we start trying to pass or push the ordinance through, and landowners, property owners come to us and they say, well, I'm not going to do what you're saying, or we could get,
Oh, when we're forming our district.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so there might be some issues
Yeah.
at that point, and then maybe then we would need to change it.
Okay, so why don't we look at this now and see if the language deals with the issues that we raised?
Okay.
And for the time being, at least, we're thinking about it as an internal guideline, not an amendment to the CLG ordinance.
Okay.
But the language would still be something that we could.
Okay.
Something to be considered for a future edition of the actual ordinance. In other words, if there's other changes,
Maybe,
they feel this may be
if needed at some
time
point.
to
we-
incorporate
we
it,
could
yeah, if needed.
incorporate it.
Okay. So I'm looking at your memo from July 8th.
That's the one.
And you suggest amending 158.03 by substituting the following. Shall I read it? Do I need to
Yeah.
read it? Landscaping or landscape feature means circulation systems such as roads and driveways, furnishings and fixtures such as light posts, fences and benches, vegetation, gardens and yards, adjacent open space such as fields, parks or commons, and important views or visual relationships. That's letter A.
Right. And that we basically agreed to the last time we dealt with this issue.
And then letter B, this applies to all existing landscape features if such features are specifically designated as having historic significance when the property is listed. And it applies to additions and changes to landscape features, excepting only minor additions or changes in vegetation, such as small flower beds and individual trees or shrubs. Period.
So
I think it's
that's-
fine.
And I mean, every other time we've dealt with this, there's always been another issue that nobody had thought about yet. So hopefully we've gotten to the point where we've covered everything. So this would allow freedom to an owner to, plant a tree, plant a small flower bed, any place they want to. We're not involved in it. But if they wanted to do something major, like put a whole vegetable garden in their front yard, we would want to have a chance to talk about that with them and either approve it or not approve it, depending on how valid their arguments seem to be.
I think it's good. So that would be information for our guidelines. We should maybe all start putting a collection of information into the guidelines. I don't know, folder or
I'll
something.
add this stuff to my draft of the so-called clarifications and guidelines. So
Good. Okay, perfect. I have a question, a sideline question on landscaping on Wooster, West Wooster. There's a home that's been abandoned for a while, and there's vegetation that's growing in front of the front entrance. You can't even see the walk going up. Do we have the power to address that as a commission?
Not right now, we don't, right? I mean, until it's
If that
listed,
was a district,
if it was part of the,
I mean, with our own
Oh,
recognition of what landscaping means.
what is our maintenance section? Wouldn't that be part of
Yeah,
that?
it says that there needs to be there needs to be maintenance of properties.
Right.
Where is it?
Okay, well, we don't even need to look for this. I just want to know that we could address that somehow because that's a real
Minimum.
eyesore and needs to be taken care of. Okay, minimum maintenance and
right.
landscaping. This is 158.09.
Mhm.
No owner shall be willfully neglect, fail to provide sufficient reasonable care, maintenance, and upkeep.
Right there.
If they don't take care of it, it's going to be $100 for, it just said $100, period.
Such planting shall be regularly pruned and weeded.
Okay, so we do cover that. We don't have a huge fine, but we could get that printed in paper maybe and make a big deal about it. Okay, thank you. Just was curious about that.
Mhm.
All right, so the other issue, those are the important things.
I just want to note too that just beyond an eyesore, vegetation is going to be is a concern to buildings in general in terms of like, if it's crawling up the building, it's going to cause deterioration to the structure itself as well. So just like the community as a whole should know that we're not just wanting to dictate landscaping because we want it to look pretty. We also care about,
Protecting
protecting
that
that
property.
historic property.
Yeah, good. Very good. Okay, so we've got a few minutes. Let's just, I'm looking at the agenda. We've talked a little bit about cooperative efforts with BG and identifying districts, public engagement plans. I have on here Chris and Christina. I don't know if you've collaborated at all.
So Christina and I are going to meet, I think next week to strategize maybe, some ideas of public engagement activities that occur. I don't have anything off the top of my head other than these presentations that we've done, the one we did to Exchange Club. I think it'd be nice to do those to a few other community organizations.
One group to write down is the Women's League of Voters.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to a couple members, Ann Bullerjohn for one, and she would welcome a presentation.
Oh, great. Do you have her contact? I can reach out to her.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll send that. to you.
I think it'd be important to do like the downtown organization, but that's going to take a little bit more strategizing. So that's
Yeah.
something that I really want Christina plugged into, but that will be a bigger discussion. I think. We'll tailor that specifically.
Good.
Downtown.
Okay, number 4, process for inventory and structures. Again, maybe that's premature for now, but we want to be thinking how we're going to do that, and we may just want to use this form that we talked about.
Yes, the
Earlier.
OHIs.
Do we all have copies of that?
I think we do. Yeah, I think we got,
we-
others sent us copies.
Do we?
Bill,
Template,
you
a
said-
blank one, but what,
They were
Is there-
slightly different, but they,
was Nate going to send us a template, like
There-
blank one?
It's a online form now, so there's not just a blank template. You actually sign into the website and fill out the information.
You get it printed out now?
Can we print it and
I'll take a look at that.
You could forward that
Yeah.
link.
could you do that, Chris? That'd be great. And maybe I'm happy to try to do my own home just to see what that involves. And maybe we could all do that just as a sample. Okay, number 5, grant proposals. I don't know that we've gone any further with.
No, I think some of the grants have passed. We need to probably just keep track of looking.
Yeah, the
Apply
CLG
next year.
is due in February. Is that right?
I believe so. I think I sent you all the
They said.
links. I don't remember. I just know from a city budgetary standpoint, our issue is that we're starting to formulate our budget. October into November is when it's normally adopted. So that's the only thing, if we have to consider some matching dollars that, I mean, you probably should have some sort of idea what the needs may be or your priorities as far as ideas. I think there's a ton of ideas we already talked about today, but you might want to think about it further, or maybe it's not a priority for the group and you want to wait another year. But from a city standpoint, we have to have some budgetary considerations for the
If we
fall.
wanted to hire someone, an entity to do our inventory, do we need to go through the public like RFP process?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
With the what process?
Request for proposal
Okay,
process?
okay, I don't always know those.
Yeah.
RSV,
P.
RFP. Mhm.
okay. Good.
And like I said, there are so many opportunities just with the National Park Service. I was surprised. I can send that presentation too today. It was very interesting.
Good. Okay, number 6, how are we doing on the FAQs? Chris?
Did I send that email? Did you all get an email from me on the FAQ?
On
On
FAQs?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
No.
Sorry about that. Oh, it might be sitting
Okay,
in my outbox, not,
great.
I can send that out. I
Great.
apologize.
And that's not a huge need at the moment, but we will want those.
Yeah, I don't know how much traffic our website is getting at the moment, but the more public engagement we have, I assume the more our traffic
Yeah,
will get. So that's the only
good.
push for that.
Okay.
Speaking of, I did notice that the PDF of the ordinance on our commission site, I don't think is the actual one that's been adopted.
Okay. we can
It
double
looks a little
check.
bit older.
We
so.
transferred from an old website to a new website and
Yeah.
we're still fixing things that need fixed because another company did it. So definitely if you see anything, we'll fix it.
7, we talked about clarifications. That's good. And landscaping, 8. COAs, Heather, number 9.
I don't really have an update. It's one of those things where I have it in my mind about what I want it to look like, a visual tool.
Mhm.
But I haven't got any further than that.
Okay. 10, we don't have any information from Christina. I really, really, really hope she can come to the next meeting. We need her presence here. Number 11, forms for historic property listings. We were just talking about that, and Chris, you're going to help us. I think we're talking about
Yes,
this,
I'll
right.
see if I can find a blank one or how we can get.
Well, no, actually, I think that one was about the, how we would actually go about handling our
Oh,
listing of
then.
properties and.
Yeah, I don't,
Did Nathan
No,
really
he
give
never
you
really-
anything? He didn't really. give you
no, he
anything
sent me an
useful
after
on that.
email after I asked more questions, but I don't think you really,
I don't think he addressed that.
I have so many papers. I don't know where I put that one, but I know I had an email
Yeah.
from him, but it didn't really give me much guidance at all. I mean, I guess at this point it's up to us. It's not, I think it's just a administrative thing, you know, am I
Yeah.
going to use Excel or Access? You know, I don't
I
think
know.
it's probably something you need to all worry about, but
Are we talking now about how we send to Nathan?
how we would just have a database of,
Right.
Where it's kept and.
right,
Yeah.
districts
Format.
or landmarks or
okay.
whatever
Okay.
you
And
designate.
how we're managing the actual nomination, right? Well, I'm assuming, you know, if someone wants to nominate their house, be listed. We're going to have information about the house, maybe a few photos. That's something that we'll all want to be able to access in the future.
Well,
That's that. Sort of
How's that different? Well, I guess this is just an inventory, isn't it? It's not a nomination.
And we have GIS.
right.
It's, you know, we'd figure it out.
Yeah.
Does the planning commission, do they, or the city, do they have any software that keeps track of information about properties and buildings?
GIS. Mhm. We have a lot of different layers of data. You know, for example, right now I have a huge rental registration program I'm working on. So that had to be built out and, you know, forms online.
Is
We've got
that
a
something
lot
that,
going on in each address.
that these districts could be tied to? That
They
software?
would be because that would then create our zoning map. So if we have an overlay to add, we would put it in our GIS information and then have our zoning map updated.
Might be good to have someone come talk to us about how that's organized.
I mean, I really honestly don't think that's a commission issue. I think it's just how is the city going to move forward with how that data is collected.
But I mean, if we're able to create data in a layer or something, like as to what that would look like it's going to GIS. In other words, if we create maps, can we use the GIS to put them in or even to create them?
Yeah, in our office, yeah, we would.
Okay.
Maybe we're talking different, but I think it's all administrative issues, how we,
The system
the department
exists.
want to.
System exists and.
Oh, absolutely.
do all
Yeah.
this,
Very
okay.
robust GIS system. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not the expert in it, but I do, you know, enter the data and create maps. So
Do you know what the name of the software is?
it's just the ArcGIS. But yeah, we can also have just a, you know, basic Word or Excel document, at least that has the listings in
That's
one
how-
document.
I mean, the National Park Service, you go to their website, you download their Excel file that has all of the National Register.
They
properties
showed
and
us
districts.
projects too. You could search the projects, so the grant projects, which was
Yeah,
interesting. And that was pretty bare bones search. I was surprised.
yeah, they're pretty, nothing too fancy about
Yeah.
it. So if the NPS doesn't have to be fancy. either.
Okay, promotion of BG historic events and organizations. You know, the one thing I think we should all try to support is the local history museum,
Yeah.
which I keep promising myself I'm going to go to those activities and I don't. But I think if we can occasionally attend something, it would be good and make it known that we're from the HBC Commission.
It'd be great if one of you could get on the board. Better yet.
That would be better, yeah.
Sue and
Yes.
I went to the event last Sunday, the
Oh, did you?
reenactment. It was-
Yeah.
it
Excellent.
was
Was
nice.
it good?
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I was.
And their
glad.
membership is affordable too. That's the
I
nice thing
think
about
that-
it.
I think that also at some point it would be useful to meet again with Holly. She used to come to some of our meetings, but
Yeah.
now I think we're at a point where maybe we could talk in more detail with her about some of the issues that we face. And she could
Good.
have some good advice for us.
Good idea.
Great
Let-
partner. Great partner, especially with the activity book. If we were to move forward
Yeah.
with that,
Yeah.
any of this work, really, they would be a great partner.
So let's save that. I mean, we could invite her for next meeting, but I think next time we should just focus on the districts or ideal overlay historic districts that we're can imagine. And then maybe in 2 meetings, we could invite Holly to come. What's Holly's last name? Does anybody know?
I don't know how to spell
Okay.
it. That's Polaroid or
I think
Holroyd.
it's-
We can look that up.
Maybe in our minutes somewhere
Yeah.
from way back when she attended and
Yeah.
spoke to us.
Excellent. Okay, I think we're good. We did pretty well. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. We have lobby visitation, but nobody's here, so we don't need to worry about that. Anybody want to call for a adjournment?
Moved.
Second.
Okay, I don't think we need to take a vote. We are.